Welcome to the Capital City Crew podcast. Join your hosts Jeff, Owen, Josh, and Herman as they dive deep into the game of Malifaux. Explore sophisticated strategies and creative combinations, but always remember in Malifaux, bad things happen.
Hello, and welcome to the Capital City Crew podcast. We are back again with some more Malifaux goodness, and today we are going to start the first of our two-part overview of the Explorer Society. So this is not going to be a deep dive. We'll save that for a little bit later, but we're going to go quickly through the first half of the Explorer Society models, talking about what the keywords do, what the masters do in a general sense, first impressions, the flavor, the art, the rules, and really getting a first look. So, who are the first four that we're going to tackle today? Well, we're going to start with Frontier. Most folks have seen the handful of new models that have been added to Cornelius Bass's crew, but we're going to talk briefly about the changes. Then we're going to jump to EVS with Maxine. We're going to go to Seeker with Nexus, and then we're going to go to Cadmus. Seeker with Jedsa, Cadmus with Nexus. We're going to be tackling these in ascending order of creepiness. So, without further ado, let's quickly jump to the rest of the group. Do we want to start with some first impressions, just overall? How about you, Jeff?
We can first impressions of Explorer Society as a whole. I think that they did a very good job of balancing a lot of these models to have a whole brand new faction coming out. I've played games where I've been on the receiving end of a butt kicking, and I've played games where I've been giving the butt kicking. So I think most of these, there may be a model here or there that needs some slight tweaks, but overall the faction plays really well. I mean, there are models in other factions that also need slight tweaks, but they did a great job on this release.
Yeah, I've been through a bunch of different edition changes and progressive editions for a variety of different games, both like Malifaux first all the way up to 3rd edition, and Dungeons & Dragons 3rd edition, 4th edition, and 5th edition. And one of the things you observe from the first books, the first models, to some of the later ones, is that the developers really start to understand how the game works. Like, the initial stuff tends to be good, but sometimes it hits it, sometimes it misses. And as they're going along, they're really learning how to make models that are good. And I think that really shows in the Explorer Society. A lot of the stuff across the board seems really good because they figure out how to make models that people will want to field. And a lot of these masters have really interesting shticks and a lot of like crazy, wacky capabilities that you haven't seen yet in Malifaux.
I mean, I think the first thing to tell people is, you go through, you look at this, and there's a whole lot of, they can do what? They can do this, they can do that, that's crazy. Play against it, then take a deep breath and play against it again. Sometimes it takes a couple times, and it's, it's something that everyone talks about, specifically with games like Malifaux, 40K, Warhammer, War Machine, all these things, is that the first time you see something, it's going to be surprising, it's going to kick your ass, and then you're going to need to learn how to adapt to it. And Explorer Society falls into that bucket very well. Now, I do think that they overall did a good job designing it. I am concerned because I think it's just as Jeff and Josh said, you get increasing efficiency with models, increasingly better at design for your game, for the new structure of the edition that you've created. But that means that things are built better. And so you do still have this, it's a better thought out faction than necessarily ones that have pre-existing models that you have to find a role for. So I think I'd say that there's like less chaff in this faction.
Yeah, and some of the models that they put out are heavily patterned on existing ones. And when we get to Jedsa, the Damned in particular is
absolutely fine.
You shut your incorrect mouth. But we'll get to that later.
I will say a lot of the models that they've put in here, they put them in other factions too. So even though in some instances you may consider this model to be like a little bit of a power creep, the model is put in place to fix issues with some other crews at the same time. Like the Damned and Savage, you've got one of the EVS crew is joining with the Colette's crew. I forgot what they were. Showgirls. So everyone got something with this release, and I think people are going to be kind of happy with it. And even if you play other factions, you're going to realize that like, hey, I got a nice little boost to this as well.
Well, I will say there were not as much like cross faction models as I expected.
Oh, I think there were more than I was expecting. That like every faction got things.
Rezzers,
they got something.
Shafted, but that's neither here nor there.
Now you've made me curious, and I'm going to have to go back and look. I figured it would be something with Jedza, but I could be completely
No, I don't think so. I can look real quick, but I want to touch on a point that Herman brought up, which is just something that everyone should keep in mind. With the rest of third edition, I mean, if you were brand new to the game, this doesn't matter. But if you were coming from a previous edition, by and large, the models and masters in third edition existed in previous editions. So you already came in knowing a general idea of what they did, what their sort of flavor approach would be. With these Explorer Society models, these are all brand new to Malifaux. So everyone's going to be on the equal footing of both, experiencing it for the first time, maybe being confused, maybe misplaying it, maybe thinking it's overpowered. Just stick with it and try these out. And I think you'll find that overall the faction is pretty well balanced, and Weird did a really good job here.
We haven't had this much drama since 10 Thunders. Another thing I want to point out that is totally unrelated to all of this stuff is that there are a lot of different connections from different models here to the other side, their RB scale war game, which I think is awesome because that game is spectacular and really just got shafted for a variety of different reasons. And if you're interested in any of those things, I highly recommend checking out the game. The Vassal app for it is pretty awesome and has a lot of great built-in capabilities, and it's definitely something that's worth checking out.
Yeah, I will say the one like EVS chick looks like she's straight out of Abyssinia.
She is. She's absolutely just literally from Abyssinia.
All right. So with that introduction out of the way, why don't we quickly touch on the Frontier faction, and then we'll go to a quick break and then jump into the other three. So, Jeff, you want to kick us off with just a recap of what is new for the Frontier faction?
Now, the Frontier faction only received 2 models, and they were the Rough Rider and the Sandworm. The Rough Rider, we got a pretty quick preview ahead of time. It was released a couple of months ago because the models already existed in the what was it, the Lucas McCabe box, the Rollins Black box. So you had the alt models for that, and the Rough Riders came out. They're fast. They're decent models for what they are, and that's the heal that they have is pretty awesome. But I actually think they're way more useful with the guild than they are with the Explorer Society.
I think they're aggressively mediocre. I mean, willpower 4 on a 7-cost model, and I mean, they're going to be in keyword with Bass, so he's going to want something kind of quick. But like you're looking at things in guild like the guardsman riders, whatever they're called, the mounted guard. I mean, they have trash stats, and they're still 5 and 5 and movement 7, not movement 6, with ride with me. So if you're looking for something within the faction, the thing already existed, even if it's kind of not a keyword. I think the thing is that the repeating rifle having that positive twist to hit helps a lot, and maybe the fact that they're cost 7, not cost 8.
Yeah, my big problem with this is with the Rough Rider, you're adding another gun to a crew that all had guns to begin with. So like Bass isn't gaining anything new from them. It's not like they're like super mobile or anything like that. And in the book he actually got something that was super mobile. I mean, the Rough Riders are fast. They can move what is it, like 17, 18 inches per turn and can heal themselves along the way. But without the armor that you can add from the guild, they die very quickly. And I don't know. I'm not a big fan of the Rough Riders. I'll take one, but
Yeah, I mean, like I play like with Mounted Guard, and you're playing little games to keep them alive, and they've got more health to replace, better stats, faster. So, and I mean, with the heal is nice, but you're searching out a 7 of tomes.
What do we think about the Sandworm, the other model they got?
So the Sandworm itself, I actually like the Sandworm, mostly because it is a Soulstone miner that lost its armor and gained the ability to kill things. So it kind of made the kick up dust that all of the Frontier models have make sense. They create severe terrain, and the Sandworm can come out of the severe terrain. The only problem with the Sandworm is it's defense 4, so it takes a lot of damage, and it doesn't have a whole lot of life. I think its life is 8 if I remember correctly. And so the big thing is it's kind of going to be buried a lot. Its abilities are kind of contradictory to itself. It has an aura to do a hazardous aura that it can put up, but it also has a defense mechanism to bury. So the hazardous, you're not going to be able to stick around long if you stay there because you have such low defense. But if you try to stick it out and use your hazardous aura to do damage to things that are attacking you, he's going to die quickly. So he's kind of a mixed bag, and the defenses that he has go in two different directions, and you don't really want to. You kind of wish that it was hey, I get to bury and reduce the damage that I take, like a lot of other models got, or give him some different defenses and have him stick around on the board for a little longer, and something along that line.
And see, like coming from the guild perspective, I look at him more as like an undercover reporter plus, where you're going to bring in this model that can really quickly and easily stretch the entire table for you. It's got the damage track in order to really threaten opposing scheme runners, and can kind of hop all over the place. So, the undercover reporter off the top of my head, I think he's 7 plus 1 is 8 out of keyword. You got a Sandworm for 8 with Bass specifically, but you have this model that fills that specific gap for guild of stretching the table and kind of getting those deep schemes done. So this is a model I'm particularly excited for because of that specific role that he can fill.
I will say the Sandworm is pretty awesome in Symbols of Authority because once he buries at the end of the second turn, or even at the end of the second turn, you can unbury him next to any of the idols that's unguarded, and then at the beginning of the third turn, just pick it up for a free score. So it's pretty awesome with that. You can't do it in the same turn, but it's good.
I was thinking the exact opposite thing for Recover Evidence, where the Sandworm is terrible.
Oh, yeah, no.
Sandworm corrupted ley lines?
No, Recover Evidence, where I can give the Sandworm an evidence marker, and as a result, it can no longer bury.
Oh, didn't you actually do that to Jeff in a game?
I totally did that to Jeff. That was a Jack Daw game, so that 4 willpower on the Rough Rider was just chef's kiss. Exquisite.
Oh, yeah, and I mean, one of the things to actually really specifically mention is, like, we've had to play against Jeff in these models for several months now, so this isn't, like, theoretical knowledge to us.
Yeah, one thing to watch out for with the Explorer Society, the vast majority of their models are very low in willpower. As an example, the Sandworm is not just defense 4; he's also willpower 4, and it's just a kind of a theme through all of the Explorer Society. They have a upgrade that they were nice enough to give them for 2 soul stones that make it to where if you attack them and models in a aura around them with a willpower based attack, you're at a negative. But at the same time, there's a lot of low willpower models here, so it is a huge crutch that they have.
As I scroll past the Sandworm, and on literally the next page, we have Jedza with her willpower 8. But
what is that, Jeff? Stuff it.
Anyway, I think that's probably enough about the new things, and we could.
Well, I do think just really quickly, yeah. the Sandworm did bring one thing to Bass. He actually made Paul Crockett worth taking with the Bass crew, which is kind of a highlight. Being able to jump to the using coordinated attack and scent of blood with it didn't make any sense previously, but now it does. So that's one thing the Sandworm brought.
The other thing too is the Sandworm does have the tech of being able to remove destructible terrain in a pulse. I mean, it's only a 1 inch, but against either Savage or the December crew or Misaki, that's going to be potentially valuable as a way to get rid of those destructible markers.
It gets back to how it's a Soulstone miner with Thriller Driller.
Yeah, that's true, but Bass already had that ability. He himself can use destructible terrain, so it is adding more onto it. But it does provide something within Explorer Society where I can tech in the Sandworm to bring up and remove markers that are laying around. And with that, I think we can head on to a break.
All right, and welcome back from the break. So second up in our overview of the first 4 keywords is going to be the EVS keyword, along with Master Maxine Agassiz. So who wants to start us off with an overview of EVS, what the theme of this keyword is, and what its general keyword abilities are?
Stupid fluff bunny question because I don't read. What is EVS? Like, what's it stand for?
It is the ship, the EV Superior. So EVS is EV Superior. That's the...
Wait, it's an acronym of an acronym?
Yes.
Yes.
That's really meta.
I mean, this is very... as a resident of the district where TLAs are just a thing, this is hit very close to home.
No, I mean, if you really want to fluff any of this, I want to say that this fluff is kind of weird. She is not the captain of the EVS, even though that's her title. The captain is somebody else. She just has a lot of money, and her husband decided to commandeer this EVS ship, and then they hired a captain who is Kia Manami, whatever her name is, and then from there they hired the crew, which is like Harada, and then they needed somebody that could be engineering, so they brought in Dr. Beeb, and she's not the captain, she's just kind of there to provide money.
No, she's also a genius. Like, that's her background, is being just a unparalleled genius.
If you look at the fluff, she's also insane because she flew into the burning eye or whatever it is.
It's like you've never met a genius before. Oh.
PhD in 2 PhDs, physics and mathematics, a master's in engineering, and additional doctorates in chemistry and biology on fellowship in France. So interestingly, she's one of the few characters who is from the United States in the Malifaux universe.
Well, hang on a minute. Were these accredited institutions?
By the guild, maybe? I don't know. Unclear.
I mean, it doesn't say which college she went to, so we don't know.
It's true.
She met the Burning Man at the University of Phoenix.
Yes. All right. So,
mechanically,
Maxine
and the EVS crew are all about card manipulation and altering the values of cards based on their suit. They have 2 big keyword abilities that show up on a bunch of the cards. That's Reconfigure and Deep Discovery. Reconfigure, which for most models has a suit associated with it, means that this model may treat that suit of cards when cheating Fate as having a value of 9, which means you can take garbage cards of the appropriate suit and have them be above average in all cases if you're cheating them in, which is pretty cool, particularly if you're coming across anything with like a static target number. You can not have to worry about having just crap cards in your hand because someone may be able to use them. And Maxine herself gets to pick what suit she gets to use for her reconfigure ability each turn. So you can base it off of what you have in hand or what suits you want to get on your triggers.
And that's really a key too, is that it's not the same suit for every model. So with Maxine aside, all the other ones have a specific suit, but it ranges from masks on some to a tome on Dr. BB, crows on a couple of them. So it really has a potential to get a lot more pretty decent flips.
Yeah, I mean, every podcast ever talks about, plan your hand. This one is a plan your hand plus.
Oh, and you have to. I mean, in general, her other ability that the rest of her crew shares is deep discovery. So once per activation, they can, when they would cheat fate, they can discard a card to cheat fate for the top non-joker card of the opposing player's deck, or the opposing player's discard pile. It's pretty neat, although you're constantly figuring out what to do with your hand, and you're also constantly watching what is being discarded in your opponent's hand. So it's pretty interesting. This particularly comes up when you go to attack and you decide to cheat. You attack, you get a high number, a 12 or something, and they decide to cheat in that 13 to beat you, and then you attack the second time and use the card from their pile. So,
oh man, EVS versus Savage must just be a nightmare. I haven't actually sussed out how that works. I imagine it's not entirely inscrutable, but I have not scruted that one yet.
I think it's the active player gets to choose, right? No, wait.
No,
I could let you choose my discard, and then I can put my discard in and screw you over.
Well, it says when you would cheat fate, and yours is when you flip. You can choose to do it with take a wound and take it from the. It's not cheating fate, right? With Savage, if I remember right.
That's correct. This is the start.
Right. So hers is when you would cheat fate. So there's not a conflict there at all.
Just fun times.
I will say, if you're playing against this crew, attacking the hand is she has a couple of ways of drawing cards, particularly her Captain of the Superior ability, where when she cheats a card with something that shares a reconfigure, she gets to draw a card. But at the same time, that's just getting rid of a card and drawing a card. There's very little card draw on this crew, so if you attack her hand, it gets rid of the advantage of reconfigure.
Her other really wacky, unprecedented power is probably impromptu innovation, which target gains a condition of this model's choice that has not been gained from this action, this activation. So you can start handing out shielded or fast or slow or whatever, because it's an attack action. You can use it on friendly or foe. And she has some triggers on there that either let multiple models gain that condition or increase the value of the condition that you hand out.
Yeah, and this really comes in handy with, as an example, you can cheat in the RAM and put fast on not only Dr. B, but also Calypso. So that's a nice little ability. And then if you want to go ahead and put focused on, say, one of your hard hitters, either Minami or Kia or Harada, you can put focused and cheat in a crow or get a crow with the flip to put focus 2 on them so that both their attacks are focused. That's basically how I have been playing her, is using her impromptu intervention to spread out really good conditions on my crew as well as hamper the other crew. But that's the direction I'd go with it.
She also has this cool ordered in chaos ability, which, while I think not necessarily the most powerful, I like it because it's almost the mirror image of Misaki's ability to shuffle good cards into her own deck. It's shuffle bad cards into your opponent's deck from their discard pile, which I think is pretty cool.
Going on down the line, her totem is her husband, who is rocking the Icarus look of a crazy man in a flying suit, who functions as a pretty good free scheme runner, fast flight, the ability to get out of engagements without losing his ability to take interact actions. This is one of those cases where the reconfigure ability is keyed to some specific stuff on the card, where it's reconfigure mask, and he has some mask triggers on either attack actions or on his tactical that has a target number, so he can use those really low masks to accomplish those triggers basically automatically by cheating.
I mean, I think one of the things that you can really highlight with her is she's actually really, really fast. Between Dr. BB and the little squid suit or the Tide Caller, I mean, you have some good speed in this.
Yeah, Orville's not really one of them, though. I wish he would have had something to make him a little. I mean, he's only moved 6, and his bonus action is to make it to where he can walk away from things. And then his Up We Go is kind of okay. It's only a stat 2 because he's only size 2. But, I mean, he is a totem, so as totems go, he's pretty decent. But
I mean, when we played, you ran him straight up the flank.
yeah, and he has concealment, and he gives concealment to everything around him. But
yeah, I mean, he basically went unmolested because I had the rest of your crew in my freaking face, BB.
But at the same time, he's not. There are scheme runners that accomplish things better than he does. So it's he's not bad, but he's not good either.
You can invest in beat sticks, of which they have several. The aforementioned Tide Caller, which, in addition to being a melee beat stick, is a height 4 model with toss. So it can toss anyone else in the crew.
Oh, it can do more than that. Some bullshit.
It can actually do toss at range, and it does reduce the range that you can toss things. But that heavy torrent is pretty good.
Yes, a toss that you don't have to be proximal to the model to do. I think you net the same distance pushed, but you don't have to be within 1 inch at the start of the action to do it.
And what's really good about the beaters in this not faction, but keyword, is you notice the Tide Caller is a 2, 4, 6 damage track, and that's where that handing out the focus from the master comes into play, where hitting for 6 damage, it tends to hurt.
The other person that really matters for passing out conditions to is Kia Minami, who is one of those models that's based off of the other side world. It's from the Abyssinian Empire. Has her charged spear attack, which, if the model reduces their shielded condition during when they make the attack, the damage on this becomes irreducible. And it is a 2, 4, 6 damage spread. So 2, 4, 6 irreducible is, if you listen to the Cry podcast, pretty good.
Yeah, it is. The nice thing about Kia is she's one of those things where if you bring the emissary, the intrepid emissary, with her, she can get additional shielded. I haven't chosen to do that just because this is an expensive crew. If you go that route, she can give herself shielded. But if it's one of the things you like to do, you're running in a low model count, and you want to include a lot of these big beaters, it's not a bad route to go.
No, I mean, it kind of opens up, like, if you're counter-attacking against them, looking for condition removal that you can use offensively, like Lady J and her final Justice Repose Clearance Sale ability.
Because with Maxine's ability, Impromptu Invention, you can help power up that attack to try to guarantee that you're going to get the irreducible. So that's some pretty interesting potential tech here. Against armored, incorporeal, like all kinds of things.
Right there, and there's a different way you can play this. You can take Maxine with those conditions and start handing out things like staggered, and then Kia has a discus grenade that attacks move. Harada has a ranged attack that puts out shockwaves that hit move. There's different ways to play this crew, and I kind of like that. So it just depends on which way you want to go, which conditions you want to hand out. So I think the crew overall is pretty well balanced. None of them are particularly broken, but I like it. Particularly, one of my favorites, and Herman loves the combination, is Dr. Beeb and Calypso. And what's cool about them is, first of all, the two of them together only cost 10 soul stones, which is awesome. You can read through the cards yourself and figure out why. But while Dr. Beeb is buried as the pilot of Calypso, when Dr. Beeb takes actions, he can control Calypso while doing so. Which is one of those things where if Dr. Beeb is buried within Calypso, you can put fast on Calypso from Maxine, and then Dr. Beeb can also gain fast from the trigger. And so now you're running around with, even though he's only moved 4, you're running around with 6 actions plus 2 bonus actions that a single model can do. And 2, 3, 4 doesn't sound like a whole lot, but it starts to add up. Plus that massive tentacles trigger, it will just set off your opponent greatly.
But I think the other thing that's kind of important is like this is a really good crew to not brick up against, because you've got the blast from the discus grenade, you've got the BB tentacle whirlwind going on, and then they have the ability to actually break these bricks apart with the Tidecaller and its range toss with the harpooners pulling things in. So it's something where like I was playing Nelly in a brick, and that did not go so great for me against this.
Why didn't it go well for you?
Literally for everything I just said.
I mean, are you sure?
Were you not paying attention?
No, not at all. I was reading
Okay.
I was reading the upgrade.
I mean, I'm skipping past the part where I kicked your ass and won that game, but still.
So
Good for you. Well, you were playing Broken Nelly, so.
All right.
Remember how Herman is the literal sorest winner?
That's true. This is a true statement.
I'm just highlighting things I learned.
That is true. All right. So overall, we would say EVS, interesting keyword, highly mobile. It got some high potential damage spikes, some probably challenging to really master card manipulation abilities. But it seems like this keyword has some really neat stuff, even without really delving super deep or optimizing the card stuff.
It has cool stuff, but it's also pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then when you're playing against this, like I mentioned, the Harpooner's willpower 4, Calypso's willpower 1, but he gets Dr. Beebe's willpower when he's inside, which is only 5. The Tidecaller's willpower 5. As of right now, it looks like all of their willpowers are. Maxine has the highest at 6. Orville's is 4. Like, willpower is a good way to go against this crew.
I mean, 5 is standard,
but also rare in this crew.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason I didn't mind playing Nelly into it.
Yeah. So, any last thoughts on EVS?
I mean, I think as far as like all the different Explorer Society Masters, these guys feel very kind of like what their middle of the road looks like.
I agree. I think they're not overpowered, they're not underpowered. They're just they're not particularly great at anything, and they're not really bad at anything. They're just kind of very middle of the road.
I think also I think one thing they do have going for them is there's a lot of really cool flavor. Like the art of the Tidecaller looks really cool. Like I bet they'll eventually make a translucent blue version of that. That'll probably be amazing. They got this giant 50 millimeter base robot suit. Like there's some pretty neat stuff going on in the travel the world on our ship and collect a wild cast of characters from all over the old world. So
I do like some of these models in the Explorer Society there's just a common ability that some of these models, not all of them, but a lot of them have this Depths of Malifaux ability that models unaffected by severe and hazardous terrain. That's actually really nice. I appreciate that, especially. It's very flavorful for explorers.
Not appreciating that as an Everborn player.
Fact.
Cry more.
All right. So why don't we jump to a quick break, and when we come back, we will ratchet up the creepy scale. These first two weren't particularly creepy, but we'll jump to our fun new master, Jedza. So stay with us. All right, welcome back. Next up, we are going to talk about the Seeker keyword, headed up by brand new master, Jedza. So, who wants to start off the discussion of our creepy undead life leech master?
So, I will say, of all the ones in Explorer Society, she's the one that kind of tilted me the most. Most of them are, I think, actually fairly reasonable. She takes a lot of mechanics that turns it on their head. And you really have to think about the matchup and what you're planning on when you go into her. So her basic idea is that she's kind of a bubble crew in the sense that she triggers off of healing and then off of terrain. So she can stop models literally from dying. I think their background is they're seeking the Fountain of Youth and their zombie mummies, something. I don't know. I don't
No,
care.
she is basically she is the fountain of youth. But it's not of youth. She brings life to everything around her, but the life isn't what you expect. So if something had died long ago, it brings it back to life, but it doesn't actually bring it to life. It just animates it.
It's necromancer bringing back to life as opposed to clerical bringing back to life.
So when you say clerical, I think of someone with numbers, like an accountant. It's no, you're not dead yet.
Yeah, but it's not just undead. She just brings random things back to life. The more wraiths are just inanimate dirt that has been animated.
But her keyword ability is the chronicle ability. And these are a different kind of things. They're sort of like the Sandeep keyword type abilities, where they all have different effects, but they trigger off the same type of action. In this case, her crew has a bunch of things that trigger when models within a 6-inch or a heal.
And they all trigger.
And they all trigger because they're all technically different abilities, because they're all like Chronicle Wanderer, or Chronicle Caravan, or Chronicle Boobity Boo. So they all trigger. And they do a wide range of different things.
There is a question that we had all through beta, and I don't know if this was ever answered. If a model's at full life and it heals, is it counted as having healed?
It is not.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Yeah, I believe
because that came up in the rules forum.
Yeah.
So it's been definitively answered by non-official sources.
Oh, cool. Definitively not definitive.
I was going to say definitively answered by non-official sources.
I don't know what you want from me. It was on the rules forums, and that was kind of the...
So sound off. Listeners, sound off on a weird place in our Facebook post when we post this episode, and let us know what you think. And ideally with links to evidence or arguments. So
yeah.
But yeah. Go ahead.
So no, I mean, this is important because you have so many things off of her that trigger when a model heals, and one of the other things she can do is she can instead turn that heal into damage. So your guys are not healing within 6 inches of her, which is critically important to some crews, and that's why you have to really think about how you're going to play against her, and you want to look at things that separate her models out of that 6-inch bubble of her preventing them from dying, keep your models out of that 6-inch bubble of her preventing you from healing, and then be prepared to have those things trigger like a freaking jackpot casino when some poor model does heal. So again, that's one of those ones. The first time you're going to play against it's rough. It is not fun. And then you're going to learn from that.
Also, fun fact, any enemy model with one wound that doesn't have regeneration instantly dies if they start their activation within 6 inches of Jedza. So keep that in mind.
That's true.
That is true.
I will say I like her flavor. I like if you have things that rely on healing, keep them out of her 6-inch bubble, because she's just gonna rip them to pieces. She has card draw just like Molly. It's actually the exact same ability of Lost Knowledge. But what I think is really interesting about her is her interaction with severe terrain. And actually not just severe terrain, but terrain in general. The Life of the Earth ability that she has, where she gets a targeted terrain piece, and within a pulse, there's a target number move duel, or you take different effects depending on what that terrain piece does, and how other things in her crew generate terrain or are themselves terrain that have different traits. I think that is a awesome mechanic, and probably one of the reasons why Jed's is one of my favorite releases on this.
It's certainly a mechanic that's really interesting and fun and curious to play. Do not play Euripides into it. Those ice pillars become not your friend. Frozen Vigor ain't going to save you. And those Garyons with the healing off the ice pillar reform from ice, that's not going to go either.
He's a little tilted. It didn't work out too well for Euripides.
I clawed back a little bit, but not enough.
And then the rest of the back of her card is the Hodgepodge Emissary.
That's true. It is very much a hodgepodge emissary, except keep in mind that plenty of wares very quickly turns into I get to automatically do 2, 3, 4 damage to a model somewhere around me. So if she wants to and she has the cards in her hand, she can automatically do 4 damage to something, and there's nothing you can do about it. So one of the weaknesses of this crew is this crew itself, most of it is very slow. Jed's move 4, Sophie's move 4, Mikhail's move 4. I mean, some of them have ways of making themselves faster, but this crew itself, most of them are very slow.
So, going into Sophie, the undead cow totem in the Seeker crew,
It's a good girl.
She does look like a good girl.
It's delightful fluff, honestly. Like,
yeah, no, it's uplifting. Some of Jed's stuff is really grim and depressing. Some of it is really uplifting.
I have no idea if you all are being sarcastic or not.
No, really. So, all right. So the flavor is Jedza happened upon this poor, starving family, and their Auroch was like on its last legs. So she was like, "All right, I'm gonna buy this almost dead Auroch off you, so that they could survive and eat." And then the Auroch immediately dies, but then comes back to life because Jedza. And then it's like, cool, I'm just going to hang out with you. And so it just is now her loyal companion going all over the world on adventures.
And because this is Malifaux, she used to travel to town with Sophie, and she hung bells on Sophie because the kids like to play with her. But the kids stopped playing with Sophie when its flesh started falling off and rotting.
Yeah.
Awkward. But so continuing this is the hodgepodge emissary theme, Sophie has move along, so all of the move 4 models in the crew are move 5 if they start within 3 inches of her.
So all that complaining that Jeff just did, we can ignore?
I mean, yeah.
I mean, if you want to stay in a 3-inch bubble for the rest of the game.
I mean, as an Outcast player, that is super easy to engineer, like to get your key moves in the 3-inch bubble.
I'm actually kind of surprised that Owen's not jumping to Explorer Society, because that totem is the only thing he ever takes in Outcast.
Ooh.
It is pretty awesome. I mean, this crew seems really cool. It's got Austringers, or an Austringer, basically, whose name is Austera. Maybe a little on the nose, name-wise, but...
there's a lot of that. Austera is very, very cool. Other than the aerial strike, I actually take Austera in other crews because her nature's rejuvenation. Once per activation, you can discard 2 cards and draw 2 cards. You mean I don't have to spin the Stallstone to do that every turn? Cool, that's awesome. Like she is between scheme marker manipulation, dropping them, her aerial strike that doesn't require line of sight in order to cover and concealment as a bonus action. Like, she is a very good model, and I really enjoy her.
But getting into other models that are basically just existing models but better, the Damned, which is a undead Blessed of December, but with a more of a face.
It's a blessing to Euripides, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, it is basically just an upgraded Blessed of December for the exact same cost.
Flavor-wise, it is literally...
It's literally a Blessed of December.
A Blessed of December. So she picked it up from the Tyrant.
I wouldn't necessarily say it's an upgraded Blessed of December, because the Blessed of December is really good. I think it's basically the Blessed of December. It has a couple of different abilities, but it's very similar to the Blessed of December itself.
With like healing and support abilities and the old ways and a ranged attack.
But it doesn't have Frozen Vigor.
Ooh.
No, I will say I've been rocking this guy out with Euripides for like, I don't even know how long now. And it is exactly what that keyword needed. It will become such a crutch piece for Savage. It's not even a joke.
So I guess moving on through the models, we'll loop back to her henchmen. But to touch on the other minions, the Grave Goo, I think, is a really interesting minion. I've had the opportunity to play against this and make the mistake of putting a bunch of my models in a forest, and then the Grave Goo was like, cool, I'm going to come walk into the forest. And it has the ability of enemy models treat terrain in base contact with it as hazardous, damage 1, poison 1. So if you are in any kind of area terrain, the Grave Goo is going to ruin your day. So it's A, really good, but B, I wonder if there's actually some play with the Grave Goo and Frontier, because they make terrain marker, 50 millimeter terrain all over the board with their Dust Storm. Do you think there might be some play with the Grave Goo making that now damage 1, poison 1 hazard terrain?
I think that's a good possibility. I think between the slippery, where that you have to be in base contact in order to hit them, hard to wound, regeneration, they are defense 5, and then they're engulf, where if you have something really big that comes up against you, you can usually, most things that are really big are slower in movement, so that you can bury it. I think there might be some play there. I would be willing to pay 8 for the Grave Goo in another faction, or in another keyword.
I mean, I think that's a really good synergy that I hadn't considered.
Just keep in mind, willpower 4. That's what its crutch. I can tell you just right off the bat, Explorer Society are not fans of obeys. It ruins your day.
But if you tell them that they're fans of obeys, they repeat it back to you.
Touche.
So let's loop back to Mikhail, the henchman. Any just high level thoughts? I mean, granted, we're trying not to do a deep dive, though we are kind of veering into that territory.
The important thing to note about Mikhail is that he's not Mikhail. He's Mikhail the 16th. And coming from a long line of Mikhails, as it turns out.
That is true.
Now, I will say the difference between our overview and our deep dive is, this is what people talk about in their deep dives. They go through the cards one by one and they mention all of the abilities. Our deep dive is going to be like how you can use these models in other crews. We're not going to read to you the abilities and things like that. Everyone can read, but just a high level overview of Mikhail is he's slow. And his Caught in the Ring ability is just phenomenal. You can't get away from it, and he's pretty badass. His My Father's Legacy can help things get out while giving him focused, and he hits hard. So that's pretty much all he has.
Do you want to explain what Caught in the Ring is, though, just for listeners' benefit?
When if you're engaging him, you cannot target any other models with attack actions. So he basically, you're stuck there with him.
So regarding Mikhail's speed, he's only really slow until he is instantaneously exceedingly fast.
Yeah.
His Chronicle ability lets you place into base contact with the model that was healed. So that's just like 7 inches of movement you can cheese out of that up. And it can happen once per activation. So if you're going up against a crew with like regen or models that you can heal so that they trigger the ability, he can go really, really far without actually spending any AP.
Well, and remember, Jedza can heal with plenty of wares. So heal one of your own models within 6 of Mikhail, jump Mikhail into base to get 7 free moves.
One of the cool abilities that he has is with his attack action. It is 3, 4, 5 damage, but the other part of it is this: he can have any one model within 4 inches of the target heal 1. So if you're within 6 inches of Jedza, you can make it take 1 point of damage, or you can heal a model and get him out of trouble. Where like you can just have a Grave Goo sitting nearby, you heal the Grave Goo, and suddenly Mikhail's on the other side of the Grave Goo safe. So it's not that he needs to worry about getting hit a whole lot. He's defense 6 with armor and hard to kill, but he has abilities to jump around. It's kind of neat.
And probably the last cool trick that he has, My Father's Legacy, is a tactical action targeting a friendly model. It makes enemy models move.
Yes.
So you have unresistible forced move on enemy models if you set up the situation. So strats and schemes that require the enemies to be in a specific position, it's like, well, I guess I can just shunt them out of that, and they have no ability to resist that. Seems real good. Seems real good.
Yeah, overall, this keyword, I would say, seems very strong. There's definitely some fiddly bits around, like, and actually, we haven't talked about Jedza's big ability to keep your own models alive, but like she has an aura where if a friendly model would die or be reduced to 0 wounds, she can discard a token to heal it too. But like I think there's going to be a lot of interesting room to explore, like how do you optimize moving this crew using the 6-inch bubbles of their chronicle abilities, and really doing some pretty powerful stuff with those combinations. But I think it's going to be definitely stronger in the hands of a player who's gotten a lot of reps in with this crew.
Well, you actually didn't go through the full fragility, like you explained fragility of life, but it couples with Chronicle Wanderer, where if you reduce a model to 0 wounds within 6 inches of her, she heals it too, so it's not dead. But her Chronicle Wanderer is if a model is healed within 6 inches of her, she can reduce the next damage that the healed model receives to 0. So not only does she keep it alive, she also basically makes it immune. So like as an example, Mikhail, you get him down to hard to kill, then you finally kill him. She brings him back to life with 2 wounds. He can reduce the next hit he takes down to 0, and then on top of that can go down to hard to kill again, and then get killed again. Like she makes them very resilient.
Yeah, and that's where you're going to want those abilities like heave or obey or pulls or pushes or things like Hole in the World that get her the hell away from her crew or get her crew hell away from each other.
Jed's is probably highest on the list of the first time you play against them, you're just going to be appalled at the stuff you come across. Just straight up appalled.
Not to mention, like, they're not easy guys to kill either. Like, there's a lot of shielded, a lot of armor. You know, Mikhail's got hard to kill. Like, they're also just hardy models in and of themselves.
Yes, and Jedza seems to have taken all of the willpower for the entire faction and kept it for herself.
That's true. She is not afraid of obeys at all because she's a master and willpower 8.
Yeah. So, but, I mean, as with everything Explorers, right, like, it's going to seem super busted the first time you play it, but having, internally played this a few times, it is strong. It's definitely competitive, but I don't think it's completely busted. Like there's counterplay, there's things you can do. There's a lot of interesting ways to interact against this crew as the opponent. So just read through it a couple times before you face off against it for the first time.
And keep in mind, if you have things in your faction that make it to where models can't heal, it's a complete counter to this. Like, if you can't heal, then no healing was done. So no harming, no nothing.
Yep.
Yeah, or take crews that are very resilient in and of themselves with hard to wound, hard to kill, armor, shielded, so that way you don't need to have healing baked into your game plan.
I actually can see Seamus coming out of the woodwork with this, where his bells start luring models away from Jedza, and then he pops out and just annihilates them. So maybe Seamus will come out.
Explorers is just a long con to make Seamus viable.
I mean, I'll allow it.
Can you imagine McMorning with all his healing?
It's going to be unpleasant. Unpleasant.
Well, it is only once per activation, so she only gets to do it once.
All right. Any last thoughts on the Seeker keyword before we move to the creepiest keyword?
No.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll head to a break and stick with us. When we come back, we'll be talking about the terrifying spider people, Cadmus. All right, and welcome back. So for the fourth and last keyword of this first part of our Explorer Society podcast, we're going to jump to the creepy spider insect-ish.
Technically, they're mites, which is a suborder of Arachnia. I guess, yeah.
Yeah, okay, all right. So spider people.
Subclass, I'm sorry. Ikari.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is why we keep Josh on the podcast.
Exactly. But yeah,
that was incredibly specific.
Definitely the creepiest Nexus, who is the leader of Cadmus.
Yeah, I mean, insectoid body horror is what Malifaux has been missing, and Nexus is just bringing that in spades.
Yeah, this is the one that I have looked forward to the most out of all of these masters that have come out. It's actually one of the reasons why I switched over from my Neverborn over to Explorer Society, and I will say I think Nexus can be really powerful, but you're going to have a hard time with it for a while. It's going to take a while to master the whole Cadmus keyword, and there is a very steep learning curve to this.
Is probably the most extreme control master maybe in Malifaux, just in terms of the complex interactions with other models and how you're altering how your crew interacts with your opponent over time. Being able to target that, effectively make them friendly to you first in certain contexts and allowing you to use some of your abilities on them. So it's just a lot going on in this.
There is a lot of moving parts to Nexus, and if when you master all those moving parts, you're going to be very strong. But until you master them, Nexus is going to feel very, very weak to you.
Yeah, this is one where I really want to watch someone play Nexus before I even look at jumping in and reading those rules, because it looks so complicated. And it's so curious and fascinating. You really want to see what it looks like when you get someone really working the spider webs.
So just to give a brief overview of what the Cadmus keyword itself does, she has a hive mind upgrade, which we can talk about in a minute. But she has an ability called We Are Legion. Actually, I guess they kind of go hand in hand. She has an ability called We Are Legion, which during the activation phase, which is literally any time that you are not in the beginning phase or the end phase, you're in the activation phase. So in case you're wondering about that, when a model heals or suffers damage, it may choose another friendly Cadmus model within 4 inches that hasn't been picked this turn and pass that 1 damage or 1 healing off to that model.
This activation, not this turn.
Or this activation, correct, sorry. So the reason why that plays into Nexus is Nexus's crew, certain models have an ability to pass out a parasite. If a model, that's the hive upgrade that we talked about, if a model has a parasite, Nexus can consider, Cadmus in general, can consider it friendly in the terms of all of these abilities. So you're going to see a lot of abilities stretched throughout this keyword that are like a friendly model takes 1 point of damage and then pulses out damage to everything around it. Well, it works for your crew because you can send in little bombs with cheap models called the eyes and the ears, but you can also use it against the enemy crew that have parasites. And on top of that, anytime if a model comes to you and you have a parasite model or model with parasite near you, if something hits you, you can pass 1 damage off to that other model as well. So this crew also plays around with poison. So a similar thing, if you have poison and a model has parasite near you, you can pass that poison damage off. There's a lot of interesting things that work with this crew, and everything moves fluidly with it.
So if all that sounded confusing, it's because it is.
So why don't we take a step back from we know so far it's super confusing. There's a lot of stuff going on, high complexity, but what's the gist, right? Of the flavor of Nexus. Who wants to run through that?
Oh man. So Nexus was an ancient hive mind entity created by Titania. And at one point you realize, oh no, this was a terrible idea. Because creating a hive mind is always a terrible idea. So she put it to sleep. Couldn't kill it, but put it to sleep. And recently it has broken out and has decided to start reinfecting people to spread its power and consciousness across everywhere, because that's what hive minds do for fun. And it does this using mites. So these parasites you're infecting with them are like giant bugs. And you can see that in a bunch of, well, I guess technically not bugs. Bugs are...
Hamlin, eat your heart out.
Yeah. So this is what Hamlin wishes they could be. Nexus actually is. So you see a lot of terrifying insect and arachnid themed creatures. Lots of eyes. This has probably the most eyes outside of maybe some of the nightmare keyword models.
No, I think it has more than the nightmare keyword models.
Oh god, so many eyes.
I do like how they captured the flavor of the hive mind. So that upgrade that I spoke about, the hive mind upgrade, if you kill Nexus, that hive mind upgrade passes to another Cadmus model. So the hive mind upgrade will always be in play no matter what, as long as there's something on the board that belongs to Cadmus.
Pro tip, Von Stuck. Just run him up next to Cadmus and laugh.
I mean, okay. I don't think you really want to be next to Cadmus, but okay.
But yeah, so you have your creepy, spreading, infecting spider-themed things, coupled with the nightmarish body horror of infesting people with parasites and then turning them into berserker husks that go in and murder everything. So if that sounds like a good time, this is like 1,000% the crew for you.
Yeah. If you liked playing Hamlin and then you thought to yourself, infecting people and having children, controlled by this random entity, that's not creepy enough. Nexus may be the master for you.
If you ever watch John Carpenter's The Thing and are like, you know what? That's what I want in my life. Cadmus is a crew for you.
I will say the shambling nest that is her totems are like, this solidifies just how weird this is. They realize that the mites realize that, no, I guess it's Cadmus as a whole, that humans burn out too quickly and they can't infest humans too much with mites because people realized it. So what they did instead to spawn all these mites is they infected wildlife in random forests of Malifaux and mummified it and turned it like spider webs and things all over it, and it's like kept alive by the will of Cadmus while it's infested with this stuff, and they hide out in the wilderness to make more of these mites. Like, so you could be just walking through the woods and suddenly you're infested by but like, that's just weird
and super creepy on flavor. So looking across the models in this keyword, unlike a lot of other keywords, well, actually, no. I guess they all have the We Are Legion ability, which is the heal or damage pass off.
Yep.
But beyond that, they're pretty all over the map in terms of abilities. Do we want to do just a quick run through of any other standout models or abilities in this keyword?
So the really big things to focus on are Meredith Stanley, because she helps to move Cadmus, who is by itself very slow. The Berserker Husks and the Eyes and Ears. The Eyes and Ears are your cheap models with allure, and they can be turned into Berserker Husks, which are your mediocre beaters in the crew. But you can get a lot of them, and they're very expendable. When you look through the flavor of the fluff and see that they're talking about how Cadmus considers her minions and things like that, the different parts of her hive mind to be expendable. That's exactly what this is. I don't think I would play Nexus into collect the bounty and things like that, just because her crew is designed to die.
And Meredith Stanley is very important to this, as she lets you convert the Eyes and Ears models, the really cheap, low-powered models, to the Berserker Husks. So you can turn some summonable chaff, because one of the things that Cadmus can do, or that Nexus can do, is summon more Eyes and Ears from either web or scheme markers. And then Meredith Stanley can convert those into beat sticks.
Yeah, and with the exception of your Eyes and Ears, you want them around, because when they die, they pulse out and have a chance to put a parasite token within 2 inches of when they die. And this crew relies on those parasite tokens a lot. Without those, you're looking at using Cadmus herself or the Shambling Nests to put the parasites on. Those are the only real reliable things. But your Shambling Nest is a stat 4. So once you get the parasite engine going, this crew plays a lot better. But until you get that engine actually worked out, until you figure out how to get parasites onto enemies, you're going to have a rough time.
It's kind of funny because, like, from the outside looking in, it looks a little bit like Ulix, where instead of growing little piggies, you're growing little Spider piggies.
Yeah, nothing like that at all.
I know. I mean, you make the cobwebs and you grow them up into eyes and ears, and you grow them up into berserker husks, and then they die. It's exactly like Ulix.
That is an interesting
It
observation.
actually is an interesting, yeah.
You can all go to hell.
Peter Porker the Spider Pig?
What? No.
He does whatever Spider Pig does.
Stop trying to ruin my keyword.
Oh,
It's
man.
okay. Your keyword is a spider that was bitten by a radioactive pig.
Other things, moving on, other things that you need to be worried about in this crew is that can catch people off guard is Meredith Stanley's quarantine ability, where until the end phase, enemy models cannot end a move or move through the area within one of the target. You can like completely block off lanes where you can't, like if you have something with a 0-inch range, they literally cannot do anything to some of these models. And keep in mind, you can only use it on a friendly Cadmus model or an enemy with poison +3, but if you have a parasite, you are a friendly Cadmus model. And then what's her name, Sonya is going to be happy with the spell eaters. They are balanced between both Cadmus and Witch Hunter, so that whenever an enemy is forced to discard, they either get burning or poison. Cadmus works off of poison. Obviously, Witch Hunter works off of burning. So,
Yeah, no, I mean, they're a fantastic take for her, and I'm really excited for them in Witch Hunter.
so you get more eyes too. Everybody gets more eyes.
God, I swear, the guild will hire anything if it shoots fire.
Hey, it's a requirement.
I do like one of the things you're always going to take is the Archivist, or Archivist, whatever you want to call it. The reason why is it has Ill Omens +2. This is something that the Neverborn pay 2 Soulstones for, but with Cadmus, it is required because Cadmus brings in a lot of models, and it's not uncommon to have 12, 13, 14 models on the board. Because it helps fuel her end of turn abilities where she gets to obey models. But the Archivist helps you balance that out when it comes time for initiative because your opponent is getting so many pass tokens. So, like I said, this crew is very in depth, and it's going to take you a while to master it. The first time you play it, you're going to be like, what the heck? This isn't strong at all. But as you get going, it gets stronger, and one day you're going to run into a tournament and see Nexus just taking the top table, and you're going to wonder, how did that just happen? I thought Nexus was complete crap. Well, she's not. She's just very difficult to play.
Cadmus. This is the Cadmus keyword.
Yeah, I know, but Nexus is the name of the.
They are one and the same.
Yeah, basically.
And in addition to all this weird, intricate complexity and complicated moving parts, you have the Night Silk Creeper, which is about as bog standard spider model as you get in Malifaux. It has all the usual things that you expect on a spider model, just in one place for 8 Soulstones.
It likes to die, and it likes to die very quickly.
Well, stat 7 on its attack, pretty awesome, with the tear off the bite to heal.
But Venom Strike, Web Strand, Create Web, Creep Along, that's just your standard spider loadout.
Yep.
Yeah, pretty much.
This is going to be so weird to play into Nightmare.
Figurative Nightmare versus literal Nightmare?
Well, also because they all like crap-ass willpower, so Terrifying is going to screw them hard.
And it does. Yes, you are completely correct. Terrifying freaking sucks for Explorer Society. Maybe that's why the Resurrectionists didn't get anything in Explorer Society, because literally their Terrifying crews counter half of the Explorer Society.
Because we have standards.
That's kind of actually funny, because they're supposed to be out there exploring.
So Nexus, willpower 7. Shambling Nest, willpower 3. The Archivist, 6. Meredith Stanley, 5. Spell Eater, 6. And then we get into Night Silk Creeper, 4. Berserker Husk, 3. Eyes and Ears, 3.
Well, hang on.
Bad.
Berserker Husks are ruthless. So again, if you follow Spider Pig plan and grow things up into Berserker Husk, you're perfectly fine. I don't want to hear crap.
Oh, they're also
Unless it's
willpower,
pig crap.
or they're also move 4. So but they do have creep along because everything in this crew is creepy.
It is going to be just an absolute blast. Hopefully, no one is scared of spiders.
Or maybe they are.
And I imagine pointing out that they're technically not spiders won't help.
Yeah, I would with this crew. Just for we're not doing a deep dive here, but this is a crew that I would consider taking things like the Intrepid Emissary to give them shielded, so they kind of stay alive a little bit longer, or taking some more healing because Meredith like a lot of them take a lot of damage from stuff, and Meredith Stanley does healing, but she can't do it all by herself. Or there's also I've taken Winston Finnegan, so I can get that extra card. This crew is very card intensive, so it's things to keep in mind.
Actually, that's a question for you as a person who's played a bunch of Explorer Societies. As a whole, how card intensive are they? And are there ways that you're mitigating that? Or is it something that you consider as similar to willpower, kind of a global weakness?
So it's not a global weakness. There are some crews like EVS and things like that can help you out with your cards and make your cards more valuable. But as a whole, I've seen a lot of their crews do feel like they're card hungry, and I run out of cards quickly. And there are some ways to mitigate that. Winston Finnegan, when you bring him into a crew, he has arcane reservoir, so you get an extra card. Some of the crew is like Jedza. If you're going against anything that makes markers, she gets you to card draw. But a lot of their card draw exists and their card manipulation exists within their masters and not the crews themselves. So you're not usually going to bring like Jedza with Nexus in order to get some card draw. So I do think that card draw is a little bit of a weakness here. I also think, with the exception of Jedza, healing is a bit of a weakness. I haven't seen a whole lot of healing outside of specific keywords. And some of them, I'd like more healing, but overall, as I mentioned in the beginning of this episode, I think Explorer Society, they came out to be pretty well balanced.
All right, well, there you have it. The first half of our Explorer Society overview. Look for us to be back soon with the second half, in which we will be going over the rest of the faction, which is new models for McCabe's Wastrel crew, Lord Cooper's crazy big game hunting Apex crew, the Syndicate owners of the Condor Railroad to Ridley, and the Department of Ungentlemanly Affairs and all of its fun and exciting ghosts. So come back. We look forward to talking to you all next time, and enjoy playing some new Explorer Society.
Peace.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Capital City Crew Podcast. We hope you tune in next time.